Today, we're gonna be doing some yummy, delicious cinnamon rolls, and you're actually just gonna come along and cook with me as I do it. So let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to Grains and Grit. My name is Felicia. Today is just going to be a very simple video, and I'm going to be showing you how I make my cinnamon rolls. This is actually a collection of like 3 different recipes that I pulled together. Great news is if you already are familiar with my yeast bread loaf recipe, which I will link down below and I'll link up here as well, then you're halfway through because that's what I use for my cinnamon rolls. So if you already got 1 recipe down, you can turn that into 2. So let's turn this camera around and let's get started. Okay, so as I stated, this is 1 batch of my simple yeast bread loaf. So if you've seen that video, again, everything will be linked below, including the recipes. This does make 2 loaves of bread. Also, if you don't ever want to make 2 loaves of bread, or for this one, if you don't also want to make a loaf or you need extra cinnamon rolls, whatever, you can divide this recipe in half. And for that, I actually have a simple ingredients quick sheet that is completely free for you guys. Description below, you just sign up for my newsletter, and it has their quick references to the ingredients for 1 loaf, 2 loaves, 3 loaves. And also other recipes as well, so be sure to check that out. So you're going to take your loaf and we're just going to divide it in half as if we were making 2 loaves of bread. Now, one thing I want to say about the wheat that I use for cinnamon rolls, what I like to do for cinnamon rolls is, because cinnamon rolls you do want to be nice and soft, so I actually use either all hard white wheat, or I do like the combination of hard red wheat and soft white wheat. I would do 2 cups of soft white wheat flour and then the rest of it in hard red wheat. That way it'll still rise, but combining the soft white with the hard does give it, the hard red does give it a bit more softness, where the hard white is generally slightly more soft, I've noticed, than the hard red anyway. But if you could do soft white with your hard white as well, that's fine. I would just do no more than 2 cups of soft white wheat flour to give it that softness. Also, just like my normal recipe, I do keep the honey in here, and I know if that may seem like it's too sweet, but I find that it does soften the dough. You can leave it out, but I have found that my family prefers it better with the honey in it because it is a bit more soft of a cinnamon roll. Okay, so we've divided in 2. We're going to set one aside, and of course, the reason I say go ahead and do it like you're making 2 loaves of bread, even if you say only need a dozen cinnamon rolls, is because, you know, you're saving time. So you're making 2 different types of bread at the same time. One of these can turn into a loaf, one of these for cinnamon rolls, or you can do both of them for cinnamon rolls, whatever you're wanting to do. But just one of those little hacks that I like to do. I just keep it at 2, use the rest for bread, because I'm usually always needing bread around here anyway. So we're just going to lightly flour the surface, as you can see I've done here, and then we're just going to roll this out into one very big rectangle. And this little roller is great. I think it's called a pastry roller. I will link it below for you guys, but it is wonderful because I don't have to bust out my big rolling pin. You of course can use a big rolling pin, but this just makes it a little bit easier. It's kind of smaller and everything, sticking in the dishwasher, all those great things. Okay, so here we have it in our rectangle. This is basically, I would say, about 10 by 14 inches roughly. Bottom line is you're kind of looking more for the thinness, so this looks to be about 1/2 inch thick. And then we're going to add on our ooey gooey filling. So as I stated earlier, this is my cinnamon roll recipe. I've mashed it all together from 3 different recipes. My yeast bread loaf recipe, Bread Becker's ooey gooey filling recipe, and then Betty Crocker's glaze for cinnamon rolls, which we'll get to later. So what you want to do is you want to get your ooey gooey filling, and this is, I use 3 cups of brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of cinnamon, and 12 tablespoons or 1 1/4 cup of melted butter. We're actually going to pause it right here and use this as an example of why you should always write down your recipes, because what I just said is actually incorrect. That is way too much sugar for our liking. It is actually half the amount that I just said. The correct amount is actually 1.5 cups of brown sugar, 1 tablespoon of cinnamon, and 6 tablespoons of melted butter, which will be in the recipe that you can print out in the description box below. So you put the sugar and the cinnamon in, and then you pour the butter over it, and you whisk it all together until it looks like this, where it's clearly mixed together. And it is going to be chunky. It's not supposed to be liquid or anything like that. And then we're just going to spread this all over here. And frankly, it's just easier to do with my hands. So we're just going to spread this. You can use less or more if you wanted to. This is to your taste, but this seems to be what my family generally likes. Okay. And just spread this all out as evenly as possible, all the way to the edges. All right, and now we're just gonna roll it up, and you're gonna start from one side, and you're going to carefully roll it up. And you're going to want to roll it up pretty tight as you can, to keep everything together. So we're just going to, and how I do that is you roll, slightly pull back, roll again, slightly back, roll again, slightly back, roll over, slightly pull back, and roll over. Your ends are probably going to be the loosest. Okay, and you're just gonna work it slowly into a tube. Then we're gonna get it where it's like this, and then you're gonna kind of feel back here. I can't show you guys because it won't really look very well. Okay, and you're gonna kind of tuck everything. I do like to tuck the ends down a bit, and you're gonna kind of feel back here and mush the seams together, and try to just keep it as even as possible, cylindrical. Now we're going to make sure you get, I prefer doing this in a 9x13 casserole dish. You can do 2 round cake pans, but I have learned that I do prefer it to have the taller sides. That way it kind of keeps everything a bit more soft and moist, but that's my personal preference, whatever you're wanting to do. So we're gonna set that aside, make sure it's really greased down. Now these are gonna be really big cinnamon rolls right here, because you can see this is pretty big width of my hand, and that's okay. Again, you can half this, make it smaller. I mean, this is to your personal preference, what you like. You can also, if you can also use muffin pans, and you can just put 1 in each muffin center to actually have everything. It makes it more like everything's a center cinnamon roll, which you know is the best. But we're gonna take our knife, and we're going to start rolling out. Now the ends, because it's kind of the wonky piece, it has way more bread, I usually set that aside, and if I have room in my pan, I will put it in. But you're going to cut them in about 1/2 inch, and here they are. So you can see they're going to be quite big. So again, if you wanted them smaller, you just take this dough and you would divide it in half again, and then roll that out. Same process. But again, you experiment with what sizes you like. This works for my family. Okay, so you're getting them. If they start unraveling, that's okay. You can tuck that back in. And we're just putting them in our 9x13 dish, or whatever dish you're using. See, that one came undone a little bit, but don't stress. You just push it right back together, and they're going to be smushed together in the pan anyway. So it's okay. And they're going to rise. It'll all get smushed together. Don't stress. All right, and we're going to speed this up. All right, and every time I make these, I forget that they do make more than 12 cinnamon rolls. So I like to have a little 8x8 pan, or, you know, you could do a cake pan, whatever you've got on hand to keep going. Okay, so here we go. As you can see, you know, they look kind of squished together, but we don't really care. These are the end pieces that I just put in here. If that is aesthetically bothering you, leave them out. No problem. But we're gonna now let these sit here and rise. Usually what I like to do is put them on top of my oven as it's preheating to 350 degrees, and usually they're going to be risen pretty quickly. I did use instant yeast with this. If you were using active dry yeast, it will take a little bit longer, but we're going to let these, cover them up, let them sit and rise until they're double in size, and I'll see you back here when that's done. All right, so here they are. They have risen for about 30 minutes and they are about double in size, and now we're just going to place them into a preheated 350 degree oven for about 25 to 30 minutes until they're nice and golden brown. And here they are out of the oven. They're still bubbling, but they're just a nice kind of golden brown on the top, all smushed together the way that we like it. And now we're going to make the glaze and put that on. Okay, so here we are. We're going to make the glaze. Now, one thing that took me a while to figure out was the fact that many homemade recipes for cinnamon rolls, what they have is actually an icing. What I like is a glaze. So what you typically get in the cinnamon rolls and the tubes from the store, that actually is more of a glaze, which is what I was going for. So if you're looking for an icing, like a cream cheese type icing, those are definitely on the internet, but for us, we're going to do a glaze, and that involves 2 2/3 cups of powdered sugar, and then 4 tablespoons of milk. And we're just going to stir all this up until it all kind of comes together. You'll see it's starting to already form there. You can definitely half this, double it, whatever you're needing to do, and just have a little bit of milk standing by in case, like this one just needs a little bit more milk, so we're going to add that. Now you can get this to the consistency that you want. If you want it a little bit more liquidy, just add a little bit more milk. But bottom line is you're wanting it where it's going to kind of pour onto the cinnamon rolls. So again, this is a glaze, very similar to like what you get in the cinnamon roll cans from the store. So let's start putting this on our cinnamon rolls. All right, now you can put this in a little quart bag or piping bag and start to drizzle it out that way. I usually do not take the time to make that extra step. I just start kind of scooping it out with whatever I use to mix it with and just start drizzling over. And you want to do this when it's very hot because this is going to melt and get that really pretty glaze that you're used to seeing with cinnamon rolls. All right, need a little more here, and it's going to spread out a bit. Again, this is going to melt more, but you can do as much or as little as you want. And now we're going to move to the next one, and you can spread it if you need to. All right, and here it all is, all nice and glazed on it. This is absolutely delicious. And now we're going to grab some coffee and go ahead and put this on a plate and enjoy. And I have to say, with the sweetness of the cinnamon roll, it is absolutely wonderful with just black coffee because it really balances that out. But it is delicious and soft. As you can see, my family loves these cinnamon rolls, and I have sold these as well with great success. So I'm going to go and continue the cinnamon roll with some cup of joe, and I really hope that y'all enjoy this recipe. Again, be sure to check out the description box below for the printable recipes on my website, and I hope y'all try this. Let me know below if you have and if you enjoy it and if you prefer icing or a glaze, and I'll see you next week.